The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me.
Excellent.
Do you think that you could repeat the question?
Yep, we good. We're live.
Can I listen more attentively?
And now here's your host, Tom Duggan.
There must have been
Thank you. No, please stop clapping. No, please, no. Honestly, we don't do anything special here. All right, very good. Tom Duggan here on this little paying attention podcast that we do once a week. Really happy to see what our numbers are over the last 5. This is our 8th show, I think, right? So for the last 8 weeks, we've been building up a really big. I've been watching the podcast on YouTube. And we get like 10 people watch. And I'm thinking, wow, there's like we come in here to do this for 10 people. This is crazy. I was going to stop doing it. And then Dave said, no, you don't understand. We put this on iTunes and iHeartRadio. You get thousands of people listening. So he showed me the numbers. It was like the first week, 4,000 people downloaded the podcast.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
So we should, by the end of today's show, have January's numbers. It's got to be way more than that at
I
this
bet
point.
it's huge.
I know that iTunes has a lot. I know that iHeart has a lot. What's that, Stu? So no, you were going to say something. I don't want to cut you off.
No, not me.
Okay. So welcome to the show. My name's Tom Duggan. We do this little podcast here every week at Studio 21 Podcast Cafe above the Two Guys Smoke Shop. And I want to, by the way, before we even start, I want to thank Dave and Mr. Jonathan. We have our charity bash every year. It's going to be March 23rd this year at the Firefighters Relief in Lawrence. And we give scholarships to kids. We honor police officers, firefighters, and veterans. It's a great night. We've got comedians. We've got celebrities. And half of the money from our raffle goes to Veterans Northeast Outreach in Haverhill. And so Dave came to me before the show and donated. I don't know if you can see this, but Dave came and donated for our raffle at a $300 value a cigar tasting for 8.
That's amazing.
A cigar tasting for 8, $300 value. So we're not even going to put this on the raffle table. We're going to do a silent auction for this. And see if maybe they can the raffle girls can raise a little bit more money for veterans.
You said for 8 people, right?
For 8 people.
That's pretty big. That's amazing.
$300 value. So we'll put that out. We'll silent auction that.
Wow.
And the other half, everybody always says, well, you're giving half. Do you keep the other half?
Right.
We don't keep. By the way, we don't keep anything from the bash.
Right.
The other half will go to organizations that we work with throughout the community. So some of it might go to the Daybreak Homeless Shelter. Right. Some of it might go to One Tail at a Time Dog Rescue. Any nonprofit or organization that we work with throughout the year that we know for sure 100% of what you give goes to where it's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's 99%, I say no to people.
Right.
I want to make sure that, and in Veterans Northeast Outreach, 100% of what you give goes directly to homeless veterans, directly to the veterans themselves.
That's a fantastic group over there. They do a great job.
It is.
Yeah.
And they have overhead. They have to pay electric. They have to pay heat. None of that comes from donations. They actually get grants from the federal government through the VA to pay for that stuff. So everything you give to Veterans Northeast Outreach literally goes like the next day into a veteran's pocket for food, for housing. If they're going to lose their house, to help them with their mortgage payment, whatever they need. And Veterans Northeast, we're going to try and get Randy Carter in here in the next couple of weeks. He's one of the guys that runs it, him and John Ratka. And we'll see if we can't get them on. But before, I'll talk about the sponsors and everybody else later. I've already eaten up a lot of time at the beginning of the show. We want to start with the news. We got to tell people what's going on. And so we've got no Meredith again today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What happened to her?
She'll be here.
I don't know. 2 weeks in a row, I'm starting to wonder.
No.
Starting to wonder.
No, it's all good.
I kind of grow on women. They love me at the very beginning, and then they just kind of disappear after a while.
I don't know about that, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. But you got me. You got news. We got lots to talk about here.
So hit us with the news. What's going on?
The first story we're going to talk about, this is actually something that you were at last night, right?
Yep.
So we love good news stories here and paying attention, and especially when we're honoring heroes out in the community. And my understanding is you were at an event last night night with the Lawrence Exchange Club, and they were honoring police officers and firefighters of the year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So this is an amazing event every year, and I've got to be honest. The Lawrence Exchange Club, I've been going to this event every year for probably the last 20 years, before I even had a newspaper. And probably around 2010, 2011, I was at the Lawrence Exchange Police Officer Firefighter of the Year, and they started, giving out their awards, and it hit me. I said, we ought to do something like this. Right. I mean, you can't honor police officers enough. You can't honor firefighters enough. So when we started our bash, we said, why don't we do the same thing? Why don't we find police officers and firefighters that, they're not part of the in-clique in their department. They're not getting all the awards because they're friends with the chief. Let's just go out and find guys that are doing stuff that they get no credit for. Let's give them awards. So last night we were there, and it was really bizarre, Fred, because the new chief in Lawrence, Roy Vask, he's kind of acting chief, but I think they're going to make him permanent. I'm pretty sure they are.
Yep.
I went to school with Roy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, He was a year behind me at St. Patrick's.
Okay.
And he used to hang out with my friend Timmy Hart. He lived next door to my friend Timmy Hart on Beacon Street.
Oh, wow.
So when he got elevated to acting chief, I thought, oh, this is great. Like, I actually know the guy before he became chief.
Right.
And not just from being a police officer. We know each other.
Yep.
So last night I went to the Police Officer Firefighter of the Year at the Doubletree Hotel. Thank you to Wheeler Brader and the Lawrence Exchange. And the chief said, no. I was walking by their table, and I said, hi. He said, no, Tom, we saved you a seat here. Very different from the last couple of chiefs.
How about that?
Very different from the last couple of chiefs. So I got to sit with those guys, and I got to chat with them a little bit throughout the night. And then Chief Vask got up and read why it is that who he nominated for Police Officer of the Year. And I think we have that clip. If you guys,
great.
If you guys want to pay attention to this for a couple minutes.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight representing the Lawrence Police Department. I'd like to start off by thanking the Exchange Club for putting this event together year after year. I'd like to recognize Wheeler Brader and Bank of America sponsoring this year's event. Lastly, I wish to congratulate all of tonight's honorees from all the different departments. The Lawrence Police Department has chosen Detective Harold Rogers as the 2017 Exchange Club Lawrence Officer of the Year. Hal worked tirelessly and diligently on upwards of 100 cases through 2017. He is a dogged investigator who cleared a remarkable and incomparable 80% of his assigned cases. This, coupled with his professionalism and integrity, make him an unparalleled member of the Lawrence Police Department and a credit to law enforcement. One of his outstanding investigations was a brazen homicide committed in broad daylight in the middle of a residential neighborhood just outside the Prospect Hill area of the city. Hal was one of the first officers on scene that cold February afternoon. He was met with an adult male victim, murdered, slumped in the snow, his body riddled with bullets. Despite being only a detective for 33 days, he immediately took control of the scene and began to set up a perimeter.
Can you pause that
with patrol officers in addition
without
to
losing it? So I want to stop this here for a second, because the two cases that he talked, I don't know if you watched this before you came in, Fred, but the two cases that he talks about as the reasons why Lawrence Police Detective Harold Rogers got this award, we talked about both of those cases on this show. We covered both of those cases. The first one he's talking about, I don't know if you guys remember, the people who follow me on Facebook will remember, because it was a huge controversy last year. I don't know if you remember Face Down in the Snow guy.
I do.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So we named him Face Down in the Snow guy because we got a picture of a guy who got shot in a drive-by shooting, and there was snow, and he fell forward into the snow. And we got a picture of it, and we debated whether or not, because it's a dead guy, do we post this? Do we use it? Do we not use it?
Pretty controversial back at the time, yeah.
But because you couldn't see his face, and we didn't release his name, we said, okay, let's do it, right?
Yep.
And the controversy that created was incredible.
Huge.
Thousands of people complaining about it. Thousands of people saying, no, it's a good thing.
Yep.
We had a great discussion online with a bunch of people. That was the first one. And then the second one he's going to talk about, just so I don't have to stop this again. We talked about this on the show 3 or 4 weeks ago, the murder on Reservoir Street on New Year's Eve. Right. And so Harold actually solved both of those cases.
Wow.
Go ahead, Stu.
Once the scene was secure, Hal and additional police personnel canvassed the area for additional victims and/or witnesses. This produced immediate results. Key witnesses were identified, as well as critical video of the actual event. Armed with this evidence, in the following days, weeks, and eventual months, Hal began the long and tireless effort of interviewing witnesses and poring over video of the crime. Through his diligence and ingenuity in these interviews and his detailed inspection of the videos of the crime and the time span before and after the crime took place, he was able to develop a partial plate as well as a make and model of a suspected motor vehicle. Based on this information, pouring over reams of RMV information, Hal was able to identify a possible match of the suspected motor vehicle. He continued his investigation and contacted the Boston Police Department with information regarding a registered owner who matched the suspect description gleaned from the crime video. This contact with the Boston Police Department resulted in Hal investigating this potential suspect's gang ties to clothing worn during the crime. After learning that the suspect motor vehicle had been involved in a recent motor vehicle accident prior to the date of the crime, Detective Rogers tracked down the individual that was involved in the accident with the suspect. This person had a picture of the recent damage to the suspect's vehicle. Hal was then able to match up this damage to the damage of the suspected vehicle caught on camera in the video of the crime. This piece of evidence was crucial in linking the suspect to this homicide. Finally, Hal was able to track down the suspect's cell phone number and was able to pinpoint the area of time of the incident. This outstanding effort by Detective Rogers produced an extremely strong circumstantial case against the suspect, which provided the probable cause to obtain a search warrant and arrest warrant for the suspect in his current residence in Boston and of the suspected motor vehicle. On May 23, 2017, Detective Rogers, along with the Massachusetts State Police, executed an arrest and search warrant of the suspect's residence. This resulted in the successful arrest of the suspect, as well as the seizure of 2 semi-automatic handguns, a crucial piece of evidence that directly linked the suspect to the homicide. The second case I would like to highlight was another homicide which took place this past New Year's Eve, during which a young male was violently murdered in his parked motor vehicle on a desolate spot of Reservoir Street, just outside the gates of St. Mary's Cemetery. This male had been shot multiple times in the face and body. Detective Rogers was assigned this homicide along with other detectives. After some initial interviews with people who knew the victim, Hal began to focus on the estranged husband of the victim's current pregnant girlfriend. Through persistent determination, he was able to disprove the estranged husband's timetable and alibi. Working on this premise, initial interviews with people associated with the victim and the suspect revealed that the suspect could not account for his whereabouts at the time of the murder. Based on this, Hal located video of the suspect's very distinct-looking truck driving around the one-block area of the crime scene before the murder. Hal also located video of the truck driving by the victim's vehicle seconds before the murder and minutes after. Unable to explain this to why his iPhone location services put him in the area of the murder at the time, Detective Rogers obtained an arrest warrant and search warrant for the husband in his apartment. After he was arrested and search warrant was executed, neither the suspect nor any of his family members, including the victim's pregnant girlfriend, were able to explain where the suspect's clothing was seen wearing on the night of the murder was located. In these investigations and numerous others conducted by Detective Rogers throughout 2017, that make him a unanimous choice for Exchange Club Officer of Lawrence Police Department.
These guys, you can cut that, Stu. These guys are true heroes.
It's outstanding.
You know, we say heroes, and I think the word gets overused by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Baseball players are kids' heroes. Actors are kids' heroes. The real heroes are the guys that usually don't get recognized.
Right.
And they go out there and they put their life on the line. You know, they're dealing with very dangerous people. This guy that they arrested, who killed face down in the snow guy, it was a drive-by shooting at 2 p.m. in front of a bus full of kids.
Wow.
So there's a bus full of kids coming down the street. The bus driver stops. He lets 2 kids off, and a black car coming the other way, the guy standing on the opposite side of the street, does a drive-by, and they keep going.
Wow.
And Detective Harold Rogers went out, and a number of other Lawrence police officers went out, and they found that this guy was connected to a gang. By the way, the gang that was threatening me, so thanks for taking that guy off the street. And they found out that this guy was connected to a gang, that it was a gang hit, and they actually got the guy. And, you know, they're gonna have a price on their head now for the rest of their life because they grabbed a gang member, and I don't think people realize that the severity of the gangs in our inner cities and what they do. They target cops, they target reporters, they target prosecutors, and they don't care because the gang that this guy happens to be in is, without saying the name of the gang, it's a gang that started in prison. It started as a prison gang, so they've got a support network in prison. So they don't care if they go to jail because they have it just as good in jail as they have, sometimes better than outside of jail, because they have this entire support network to get drugs, to get food, to get whatever they need to get while they're in jail. And they order hits from inside jail too. We have not to digress, I know you've got other stuff, but there's a Lawrence police officer right now who's the head of the gang unit who they put a $20,000 bounty on his head. They've actually got on video the guy making the payoff. Wow. But they didn't get the guy who took the payoff. He got away. Man. And so, the U.S. Marshals are like watching this guy, trying to protect him while he's out there doing his job. And he's riding around the city of Lawrence every night. And the chief told him, "Why don't you work inside till we get this worked out? Why don't we reassign you?" He said, "No way." He said, "Then they win." And he's out there still every night, and he's out there doing his job. And he's out there actually right now. They were doing a raid this afternoon before we got here, and that's courage.
Wow.
Courage isn't not being scared. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. And these guys do it anyway. They deserve a lot of credit.
Definitely. Well, talk about a great event last night to recognize them, give them some of that credit. So good for them. That's terrific. Well, so listen, Tom, we got our next story here, and we're actually going to turn to politics, kind of a dubious subject. Sure. But,
I'm up for it.
If you follow Mass politics, and particularly Massachusetts Republican politics, you know that the Mass Republican Party has had a long-standing rule in place that when there is a primary challenge in one of the races, they don't get involved. They're neutral in a primary. And this week, there was a change in that that was proposed by the executive committee, apparently, of the Republican Party, according to the Boston Globe. And they scrapped rules banning it from taking sides in primary fights, and they put their full organizational muscle behind Governor Charlie Baker's reelection efforts.
Good for them.
So,
good for them.
What do you think about that? You seem supportive of that.
I am supportive of that. Normally, I would be against that, right? Yep. Because the party should stay out of the primary fights. We know that they don't. We know that they pretend. Both parties do this. They pretend we're not going to get involved, and then they pick their favorite candidate, and then behind the scenes they help them. Mm-hmm. I think you've got a lot of people. Like I'm a Tea Party guy. I'm a right-wing Tea Party guy. I left the Republican Party for a lot of reasons, but the main reason was because they keep circling the wagons and shooting in.
Right.
All the people to the right of center in the Republican Party in Massachusetts hates Charlie Baker. Mm-hmm. He banned bump stocks. He's for gay marriage. All the social issues, he's with the liberals. He's with the Democrats on the social issues, and they hate that. So they attack him every chance they get. And I argue with them all the time saying, would you rather have Martha Coakley? Would you rather have a Maura Healey?
Right.
Their answer is yes.
Oh, wow.
Their answer is yes. And the reason their answer is yes is they can go out and rail against Maura Healey or Martha Coakley. They can raise money on it. They can go out and hold rallies and say, look how awful it is, all these things that they're doing. But if it's a Republican, it's one of their own. So they would rather kill the Republican and let a Democrat win so they can rail against it, raise money and hold rallies and be important, be the big fish in the little pond, than to have a guy who agrees with you 50% of the time. And Charlie Baker, maybe even 60% of the time, is on board with the Republican agenda.
Sure.
So he's not with us on the social issues. So what? The Democrat would be against you 100% of the time.
Right.
They'd be out there pushing abortion on demand up to third grade. How does that help? I mean, you either care about the state that you live in or you don't. You either care about the community you live in or you don't. And apparently they don't.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I left the Republican Party. I'm tired of the circular firing squads. You've got a guy in there. It's like I supported Katie Ives. She's a liberal Democrat. She's a state senator.
Yep.
And my right-wing Republican friends, you're a traitor. You're a traitor. No, not really. I would rather have Katie Ives who does nothing for the Democrat cause. She's not out there pushing abortion. She's not out there pushing gay marriage. She's not out there pushing transgender acceptance. And if she were to leave, there's a real good chance that you'd probably get someone further to the left of her, like a Jamie Eldridge, who would be championing these things and working hard for these things.
Right.
So why wouldn't I support a Democrat that's going to make other Democrats crazy?
Yep.
And screw up their own party agenda? That's just how I try to think.
Sort of makes sense.
I try to think tactically.
Right.
So anyways.
Well, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Massachusetts Republicans have their convention coming up in late April, so this will be something I'm sure that gets a lot of attention as we
Maybe
go
we'll
forward,
cover that.
So.
Maybe we'll do our show from the convention.
Oh, there you go. That'd be interesting.
I think I know a few people over there. We might be able to
You probably know a few people, yeah.
Okay.
So, Tom, continuing on politics, we want to talk for a minute about Methuen State Representative Diana DiZoglio.
Love her.
She's a solid supporter of Valley Patriot and of everything that you do, and She was working on an important issue this week. She wanted to get to the bottom of reports that the Mass Department of Revenue was failing to make child support payments to an unknown number of children statewide for more than 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And this is actually a story that was ripped from the headlines of the Valley Patriot that covered this and broke this story.
Exclusive. By the way, we broke this exclusive story 2 days ago, and the Boston Press still hasn't picked it up.
Amazing, right?
They will eventually, but
they will eventually.
They haven't picked it up.
It's a big story. So this all started because DiZoglio said she heard from a constituent in North Andover who was complaining about the fact that DOR was not sending her the payments that she needed to care for her 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And apparently that the person in question who's supposed to be making these payments was supposed to be making them to this individual and to another person as well. And combined altogether was for about $700 a week worth of payments. They called DOR, and DOR really wasn't able to proffer an explanation as to where these payments were. So Representative DiZoglio wanted to get to the bottom of it. And I understand that I think you have some late-breaking news in terms of how this all worked out. So tell us about that.
So Diana, Representative DiZoglio sent an email to DOR.
Right.
And basically said, you know, what the hell? What's going on here?
Give me an explanation.
Just tell me what's going on. I have constituents that are upset about this. Mm-hmm. Their answer was basically, yeah, we've got a problem, and we're working on it, and it's an undetermined number of people, and we're trying to make it work, and thanks for being interested.
So that answer, Representative DiZoglio said, quote, their answer was sorely lacking in detail.
Yeah.
When a politician says that, you know that's really bad. Here you go. That was a bad answer.
That's true. That's true. So my understanding is she met this morning with the head of DOR. I haven't heard from her as to how that meeting went. I can't imagine it went well for DOR.
Probably not great.
Because she's a spitfire. But I did get let me try that again. I did get notified by the woman in North Andover, Alexis Kelly, who wasn't getting her payments. And magically, less than 24 hours after Diana DiZoglio sent her letter to DOR and we posted this story, she's now starting to get payments. It's not what she's supposed to be getting.
Yep. It
was only like $200 or $300 or $400, and they still owe her a lot more. But it's amazing how once your name's in a newspaper, once your name's in a news story, and it involves state agencies, all of a sudden, no problem, nothing to see here. No, we'll give you the money, not a problem.
Magic, like you said, amazing.
Right? So we're going to continue to follow this because here's my prediction, and we'll know in another show or two. My prediction is this is widespread, that it's not a glitch in the system. I think there's money missing, and I think they're moving money around from account to account trying to figure out how to cover it up.
Right.
And I only say that because I know people, and I started making phone calls when this happened. And I had people who normally will tell me stuff off the record didn't want to even touch this.
Really?
They were like, "Look, this is way past my pay grade. I'm not even going near this."
Wow.
So when you have politicians that are usually even off the record willing to give you stuff, and they're running away from an issue, that's how you know it's a pretty big issue.
It's bad. Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll be watching that, but that sounds like that's a combination of some good journalism and some good work by an elected official to try to get this resolved.
Yep.
So
we worked very well together, Diana.
Absolutely. So we actually have more news about Representative DiZoglio. This is on a completely different issue.
Oh, no. Now you're going to make me beat up on Diana after all that?
No. We give the news, Tom.
All right.
We give the news. We tell the news straight, right? So Representative DiZoglio is also working on a bill aimed at non-disclosure agreements in the workplace, which she says is an effort to empower victims. She wants to do away with companies' non-disclosure agreements that she says protect perpetrators of harassment, discrimination, and other abuses while preventing victims from healing.
Listen, I love Diana DiZoglio. I don't think anybody can dispute that.
You don't sound like you like this one too much.
She's way out of friggin' control on this. She needs to focus on local Methuen, North Andover issues and stay away from this Me Too bullshit. Let's just think logically for a minute. Nothing that the news presents is ever as simple as they present it to be. These non-disclosure agreements are there for a reason. For example, you have a lot of women who don't want their name in the paper, who don't want to be public, who don't want the accusation to go public. They don't want to be thought of as a victim. You have a lot of guys out there that get wrongly accused, and they settle the case in order to make it go away because they don't want it to destroy their career. And even though they didn't do anything wrong, and I actually know a guy who went through this, he didn't do anything wrong, and the only way to make this not be in the paper and lose his business was to settle it out of court. And the woman said, Fine, if you want to give me whatever the number was, $50,000, whatever, I'll go away and never talk about it again. Non-disclosure agreements are something that both sides have to agree to. And you're taking the choice of people involved in a very complicated issue, and every issue is different, right? You can't label and stereotype domestic violence or sexual harassment because it comes in many different forms. And people lie. I don't know why CNN doesn't get this. I don't know why the mainstream media and the Democrat Party or Diana doesn't get this. But people lie. Men beat their wives and they lie about it. Women accuse their husbands of beating them and they're lying about it sometimes. And these non-disclosure agreements are actually a tool to help first of all, to keep things out of court, right? You want to settle the case, keep it out of court. Everybody's going to spend money on lawyers. Nobody wins at that point. Even the people who win end up not winning. But we have to remember that we live in a society where you are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And if someone is willing to settle something out of court and there's a non-disclosure agreement agreed to by both sides, that should be their choice. It's amazing how the Democrats are all pro-choice when it comes to abortion, but nothing else.
Well, so let's cover both sides of this for a second.
All right, sure.
So in her defense, Representative DiZoglio is saying that
you're going to defend Diana on my show?
I'm just going to give the news, and you're going to give your opinion about it, all right? DiZoglio says that perpetrators are essentially paying to silence their victims,
right?
Potentially continue crimes, that this is basically a power issue, and that what these non-disclosure agreements do is they stifle people from coming forward and reporting things that should be, seeing the light of day out there.
Right. Well, so here's my thought.
Yep.
Go to the cops. If you want to make it a public thing and you don't want non-disclosure agreements to hinder you, first of all, don't agree to the non-disclosure agreement. Sue the guy and go to court. Don't agree to it. Right? This is something that's the woman's choice. She can say when the guy who supposedly sexually harassed her, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but when his lawyer approaches her lawyer and says, look, we'll give you $100,000 if it goes away, but there's got to be a non-disclosure agreement, they have to agree to that. That's not like something that they put in that everyone has to accept. It's something that they have to choose. I don't know. I say it's amazing how the Democrats love choice when it comes to abortion, but they don't want you to have the choice to carry a gun. They don't want you to have the choice to settle agreements out of court, have non-disclosure agreements. They don't want you to have any choice on anything. Except abortion. If you want to kill your baby, I guess that's okay.
Well, we'll see what happens. So this bill, we're going to follow this bill. This is currently in the Joint Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, and the chair of that committee gave the bill an extension. So they're going to keep working on this bill throughout the remainder of the legislative session. And Representative DiZoglio says she hopes to get it passed as quickly as possible.
I hate to say this publicly. I'll tell you what I told. I'll tell all of you guys, all 9 of you
when
watching.
Tom says that,
I am going to be working very hard to make sure that Diana DiZoglio's bill gets killed in committee. I'm probably going to fail because Democrats run the legislature and they want to take people's freedoms away anytime something happens. Anytime something happens that stirs people up politically, their answer is always take someone's freedom away. Right? Apparently, Democrats think we have way too much freedom. They think that's the problem with America. So I'm going to work very hard to stop that bill.
We'll see what happens.
And it's gonna hurt because Diana and I work on a lot of other stuff like this DOR stuff.
Yep. And
she's not going to be happy. She's not someone who handles even constructive criticism very well sometimes.
Well, sometimes a debate is a good thing. So we'll see. Maybe,
I agree.
So Tom, just very quickly, we have a good news story here to report on the city of Haverhill.
Love good news.
So this is also ripped from a page of the Valley Patriot.
Yep.
So there were some students at Whittier Tech who are now using music therapy as a way to help patients with Alzheimer's disease communicate with family and friends. Kind of an interesting story behind this. So they were watching a film called Alive Inside, and it follows a guy by the name of Dan Cohen who founded a nonprofit organization called Music and Memory that worked to combat memory loss in patients through the use of music. And these students wanted to replicate the process, locally. So they contacted Cohen with his assistants. They received training over the summer to implement the program at the Wingate at Haverhill. And now they're using music to help residents with Alzheimer's and dementia relive memories that they were thought to have been lost. On February 14th, just this past week, the three friends spent a portion of their afternoon at Wingate to train staff and meet the residents there. So they're now in the first phase of the project, and following completion of the training, family members of Wingate will meet with the group to assist with compiling a list of songs from their childhood that are going to be used for therapy. And then once complete, they're going to download those songs onto an iPod and use them as a resource tool for staff to be able to communicate with these patients. So kind of an amazing story just here locally.
You took the word right out of my head. I'm sitting here thinking that's just amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And good work by these students.
Well, listen, I think we should listen more to kids. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when Paul comes.
Yep.
We should listen more to kids. You see these kids that were involved in the shooting. I don't agree with some of them getting up there saying take the guns because they're kids and they're young and they don't know better. But we should be hearing them and we should be listening because sometimes they have much better ideas than we do on stuff.
Right. Yep.
Because they're not restrained by the stuff that we're restrained by in our head. We know how the process works. Some of them don't know, so they come up with stuff that we never would have thought of.
Once again, good to have more voices in the process, to have lots of people involved.
Right.
So, Tom, we're almost done with news, but before we leave, just wanted to let you give a big thank you to someone who's supporting that bash that you were talking about coming up on March 23rd, and I'll set it up for you. You can talk a little bit about it. But so this is Gene Smith from Military Connections, and he donated $1,000 to the Lawrence High School ROTC students to receive a scholarship at the bash.
Yep. So every year at the bash we give out scholarships.
Yep.
Last year we had 2 Lawrence High kids. I think we gave them $2,000 each, and then we had another kid from the Voc that we gave $2. And then we had, I think, another kid from Methuen that we didn't give to. The Methuen police give a scholarship every year, but they don't have like a ceremony or anything. They just kind of mail the kid the check. So we said, why don't you guys come to our event and you can present the check and we'll, get more people in the room and, it'll be fun. We'll get your pictures. We'll put you in the paper and we'll highlight what you did. So Gene came to me. He's a member of the Lawrence Lions. I'm a member of the Lawrence Lions. He came to me yesterday or the day before because I don't sleep, so I don't even know what day it is half the time. And he said, Tom, I've got $1,000 in our account. And I loved that you guys were he came to the bash last year and he was totally blown away. And he said, you know what I want to do? He said, I want to take that $1,000 and donate it to a Lawrence High kid in the ROTC at your bash.
How about that?
So can you dedicate a scholarship to an ROTC kid? Now, the amazing part of this is that ROTC comes to our event every year anyway.
Right.
They come and they quiet the room. They come in with the flags and they do a march.
Yep.
And that shuts everybody up.
Very impressive.
Something big, something important is going to go on.
Yep.
So they're going to be in the room anyway. We're going to have Jeff Riley make sure that the kid getting the award is part of the ROTC kids that march in.
Oh, that's terrific.
And we're not going to tell him he's even nominated. And then we're going to pull him out of line. And we're going to have Gene come up. Anybody who donates $1,000 or more, $500 or more for a scholarship, the person who makes the donation, we will have them come up and hand the kid the check.
That's terrific.
Take their picture, put it in the paper, everybody wins.
What a good cause. That's terrific. Good for you. So while we're on the subject, so at the close of the news every week, we talk about sort of what we do and, mention we do real estate, we do all this stuff. But one of the important things we do in my job is we support the Valley Patriot and the efforts that you do, support you in terms of getting you out there to speak with people and lining you up for opportunities to educate the community about sort of some of the issues that we talk about here on Paying Attention all the time and that you read about the Valley Patriot. But we also try to support the bash coming up on March 23rd. So if people are listening, if they're watching this podcast, and they want to find out more information about how to support the bash, maybe donate something, maybe kind of sponsor the show here. You can see, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see some of the ads we run on the screen and everything. Become a sponsor of the show. Reach out to us. You can call 978-494-4450 or email lyric@lyricconsulting.com. We'll get you all the information you need to become a sponsor and to support this very important cause coming up on March 23rd.
And we would appreciate it because all of the money goes to a lot of good places.
Sure does.
I know that one of the guys we're going to surprise with a check is actually watching, so I can't say what it is.
Okay.
If I didn't think he was watching, I would have spoiled it.
Don't spoil it.
But it's a great event, and we give awards to cops, firefighters, and veterans. And we also try to honor people in the community who do things. Like we've got a guy that is involved in a nonprofit where kids that helps kids.
Yep.
And when a kid joins and they don't have money for a uniform, they don't have money for equipment, this guy takes the money out of his pocket and he goes and he gets them a uniform or the equipment that they need.
How about that?
And so I heard this from someone and I ran into him one day and I said, hey, I heard a story. Is this true? I just wanted to know out of curiosity. And he said, yeah, not only that, and he started telling me some of the other stuff that's coming out of his pocket. He's like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yep.
He said, I love this, and I'm not saying which nonprofit because he's watching.
Right.
But he said, I put a lot of time into this, and we do a lot for the kids. but I can't be spending all this money out of my pocket anymore.
Yep.
And we're hurting financially. So when he comes, he's going to be at the bash that night. We're going to present him with a check for something to help him out with that.
That's great. A lot of good causes out there. A lot of people at this bash support. So.
And I personally screen every nonprofit that we give money to. They have to give 100% to the cause that they support. I look at their books. I visit them.
Yep.
We're going to give a little money to Daybreak Homeless Shelter this year. I work at Daybreak, not officially, but I work with Karina trying to help people there. I know what they do with their money. I went on the Secretary of State's website. I see what it is that they're doing. They're doing amazing work, so we're going to try and give them some money.
Very worthy causes and doing some great work in the community.
Thank you.
Definitely get involved.
And you and Meredith are going to be doing a live news feed.
I think we will, yeah.
From the bash.
Lots to talk about at the bash.
That's great.
So, but go to the bash. Get tickets. You got to be there. But if you can't be there, we'll be doing live news feed and keep you informed of everything that's happening and all the surprises that come up that evening. So
you can get your tickets on Eventbrite.com. By the end of today, I'll have it up on the Valley Patriot website. Or you can just call me or email me. We'll actually have physical tickets hopefully by tomorrow that we can actually start selling.
Great. Good stuff.
Yep.
Good stuff. Great cause.
Thanks.
All right, Tom.
That's it? No more news?
That's your news.
I ruined your whole day just for that?
No, it was fun.
He keeps saying that, but I still got a feeling he's like, my whole day is gone.
You never trust me. I don't know. It's all good.
All right.
It's all good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fred.
Thanks, Tom.
Meredith, I want to promise that she'll be back next week. I'm going through Meredith withdrawals.
I don't promise a lot, but we'll work on it. We're working on it.
All right. Very good.
It'll be good. We'll have the news either way.
Very good. I want to thank Twin Light Security for sponsoring the Paying Attention podcast. Twin Light Security and Investigations. They not only sponsor the Valley Patriot, but they sponsor the podcast. And my understanding is they're also helping us sponsor the bash. We appreciate Mike Thibodeau and Pat McLaughlin for doing that. Also want to thank Joe Zingalis from Team Zingalis, Century 21. And I had to thank, and Angelo. Don't forget Angelo. He's at the old Metropolitan Building on South Broadway in Lawrence. Angelo now runs A&B Auto, and he came from either Everett or Revere somewhere and decided to move his business to Lawrence.
Oh, wow.
Anytime someone decides to go from anywhere else into Lawrence for any reason, we want to help those guys out.
Back.
Because, listen, you're right out of the frying pan into the fire. We want to make sure we help you get some business. So if somebody hits your car, somebody scratches your car, you get a ding on your car, you get into an accident, go see Angelo at A&B Auto Body on South Broadway in Lawrence. Tell him that you're a friend of the Valley Patriot or this podcast, and he'll give you a good deal.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
All
right, Fred, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got Paul Morano, and we're going to talk about some stuff, and then in the next segment after that, we get Phil the Future. Phil DiCollegiero will be here.
All right.
On Paying Attention.